New York Times Company versus United States took place during 1971. The petitioner was the New York Times Company and the respondent was the United States. Richard M. Nixon was president at the time. This case soon became known as the Pentagon Papers case. The Supreme Court has disagreed with deciding the limitations that can be placed upon the guarantees of the First Amendment, and this particular case serves as an example of this disagreement. The New York Times newspaper had obtained documents referred to as the Pentagon Papers. The Pentagon Papers were a study prepared by the Department of Defense that detailed the United States' political military involvement in the Vietnam War. The documents appeared when the country had a split perspective regarding the involvement in the war. When the Pentagon Papers surfaced, the New York Times fought to publish the papers and claimed that the First Amendment permitted the action. The Nixon administration fought against the New York Times in order to prevent the publication.
Regarding the Constitution, the amendment in question for the New York Times Company versus the United States was the First Amendment. The First Amendment goes beyond the stretches of freedom of speech, with many other rights being covered as well. Protected under this amendment is the freedom of the press, which correlates to this case because the issue at hand had to do with the publishing of classified documents in the newspaper.
The argument of the New York Times is as follows. The New York Times claimed that the First Amendment, the freedom of the press, protected the rights of the newspaper to publish the Pentagon Papers. There is a restraint on executive power when discussing the matter of national defense, which is a well-informed country. The press essentially has the right to inform the American people of issues pertaining to the country and militaristic issues. To continue, the newspaper company also argued the point that the federal government failed to demonstrate how the publication of the documents could potentially jeopardize the national security of the nation. The argument of the United States and the Nixon administration is as follows. The United States claimed that because the nation's security is a factor, the First Amendment does not completely cover the rights of the newspaper company and the freedom of the press. The court had to create a split between the rights to a free press along with the protection of the nation by the government. If the Pentagon Papers were permitted to be published, then the court could encounter future issues regarding the national security of the nation.
At a 6-3 vote in the court, the ruling went in favor of the New York Times Company. They were able to publish the classified Pentagon Papers without risk of punishment or censorship by the government. The First Amendment protects the right of the freedom of the press, and thus it was their right to publish the papers. The court noted that they did not feel comfortable with stifling the press at the government's hand. There were split emotions over the decision that accompanied the supposed threat to national security that the publication brought. Some judges felt the First Amendment should be held absolute, while some felt it should be debated on occasion, and others found it difficult to deem this constitutional. This case did not overturn any previous decisions, but it furthered the reinforcement of the court's stance against prior restraint.